I never could have imagined that my newlywed wife, who rarely let me touch her at home, would willingly put a rope around her neck for another man. What shocked me even more was discovering they had a life on their conscience. 01 My name is Li Song, and I'm a live-in son-in-law. My wife, Zhao Lin, is a graceful beauty with a voluptuous figure, tall stature, and charming features. Her family is quite well off by urban standards, solidly middle class. Both her parents are retired public school teachers, drawing over 10,000 yuan in pensions every month. I met my wife at the company, where there were many suitors competing for her attention. To my surprise, she chose me, a somewhat simple and honest man. This gave others the impression that a beautiful cabbage had been trampled by a pig. But I paid no attention to their judgment, feeling only that I was enveloped in the bliss of love. Now we've been married for a year, and our daughter was just born. She's still in the breastfeeding stage. People always say that after giving birth, a woman's figure will be ruined, and she'll quickly turn into a middle-aged woman. But I don't see it that way. I think my wife has become even more captivating since she got pregnant, especially when she reveals that delicate, snow-white skin while feeding her child. I always find myself mesmerized, even feeling a stirring in my body. To be honest, brothers, as a laborer from the countryside, marrying such a wife feels like a blessing earned over 8 lifetimes. Even if I have to work like an ox or a horse for her, I'd say it's worth it. Even when her family orders me around and treats me with disdain, I can accept it. But recently, I've noticed something unusual about my wife. I actually knew Zhao Lin somewhat looked down on me, but for some reason back then, she chose me to become the live-in son-in-law for her family. Her parents initially disagreed, but they couldn't withstand their daughter's stubbornness. After getting to know me, they found me honest and reliable enough, so they eventually consented to the marriage. My own parents didn't object either, since I had a younger brother beneath me. With me marrying into another family, it would be easier for my brother to find work and earn money later. Although my wife treated me with indifference after marriage, during our newlywed period, she still allowed me my husbandly rights. She even helped satisfy my physical needs during her pregnancy. But lately she's been kicking me out of the bedroom, not even letting me touch her. Several times when I couldn't hold back anymore, I'd climb on her bed. Seeing she didn't resist me getting in, I'd gently caress her body, hoping to rekindle her desire for me, only to be met with disgusted scolding every time. I thought maybe it was because my wife had just given birth and her body hadn't fully recovered yet. Once her body completely recovers, we can return to our previous happy life together. But my wife went back to work right after finishing her postpartum confinement. There were even times when I woke up to find her gone, only to learn from a phone call that she had already left for the office. I was worried about her health. After all, childbirth takes a heavy toll on a woman's body. I wanted her to come back and rest a little longer, especially since her maternity leave from the company hadn't even expired yet. To my surprise, my concern was met with her scorn. With the measly salary you earn, a man who's practically a live-in son-in-law if I don't work, are we supposed to mooch off our parents? As much as I wanted to argue back, my wife wasn't wrong. I was just an ordinary employee, and even working my hardest, I only made 5 or 6,000 a month, nowhere near enough to cover the expenses for both her and our child. My wife had been promoted to manager at her company, with a position much higher than mine and a monthly salary exceeding 10,000. But precisely because of her promotion, she left early and returned late every day, often coming home utterly exhausted, showing no response to my physical needs. One evening, as soon as I got home, I saw my wife leaning tiredly on the sofa. She was dressed in professional attire, and her already prominent curves had become even more pronounced after giving birth. I swallowed hard and slowly walked over to her side. 02, darling. I gently nudged my wife. Why are you back so early today? Seeing that she didn't respond at all, she was probably asleep. It seemed her work had really exhausted her. I quietly helped my wife take off her shoes, gazing at her enchanting appearance as a surge of restless heat welled up in my heart. I've been holding back for far too long, every day watching such a voluptuous woman moving about right under my nose, yet never being able to have her. That torment was truly unbearable. Gently caressing my wife's body, my hands slowly wandered upward, seeing that her eyes remained tightly shut without any resistance. My courage gradually grew. Dressed in her professional attire with half her charms exposed, she was like an intoxicating poison that bewitched me. I slowly placed my hand on her softness, and as she felt it, her brows slightly furrowed while she let out a faint murmur in her sleep. I instantly felt an immense surge of stimulation, increasing the strength in my hand while the other took the opportunity to explore downward. Suddenly, my face froze, revealing a stunned expression. In disbelief, I lifted my wife's skirt and immediately widened my eyes. There was nothing underneath. This couldn't be normal. Something was definitely wrong. I suddenly felt my wife before me was no longer alluring. Her body had become utterly devoid of charm. I strode quickly into the bedroom and began rummaging through my wife's wardrobe. Sure enough, a purple lingerie set was missing. This proved she had worn it when leaving home today, yet it was gone upon her return. Recalling my wife's attitude toward me during this period, a deep unease welled up in my heart. Could it be that my wife is cheating on me behind my back? Is she treating me like this now simply because she's been satisfied by some other man and thus has no interest left for me? A surge of anger rose from the depths of my heart, making me want to shake my wife awake and confront her directly. But my rationality stopped me. The situation isn't clear yet. I need to investigate properly, or else wrongly accusing her would only make things worse. After all, infidelity is an exceptionally serious issue between married couples. Looking at my still sleeping wife, I quietly walked to her side and used her fingerprint to unlock her phone. From the time we got married until now, we've never checked each other's phones. I didn't check my wife's because I trusted her. As for why she never checked mine, most likely she just didn't care. I kept scrolling through my wife's chat history, contacts, photo albums. After searching around, I found nothing unusual. Could I have really wronged my wife? Or was she so cautious that she cleared all the messages from her phone every day when she came home? I carried my wife back to the bedroom, gently laid her on the bed, helped her out of her clothes, tucked her in, and then left. Lying on the sofa, I tossed and turned, my mind filled with thoughts of my wife. Perhaps because she was still in the postpartum period, her body produced more secretions, which stained that underwear, and she simply didn't want it anymore and threw it away. I comforted myself with these thoughts and, before I knew it, drifted off to sleep. 2 days later was my wife's 26th birthday. I had prepared a gift early, hoping this birthday might rekindle her love for me. When I was about to book a restaurant, my wife told me her younger brother had already made the reservation. My brother-in-law is named Zhao Kwang, 23 years old. He's always hanging out with a bunch of unsavory friends, which makes me dislike him somewhat. But since he's my wife's own brother, I couldn't very well say anything about it. When my wife's birthday arrived, I went along with her to the restaurant. When I arrived at the restaurant, I found that besides Zhao Kwang and my wife's parents, there was also an unfamiliar face. I didn't recognize this person. 03, this is my elder brother Lu Xing, also the boss of the client company for the project my sister has been handling recently. Zhao Kwang pointed at the unfamiliar face and introduced him to me. I was somewhat surprised. I knew about the project my wife was handling, but I hadn't expected this Lu Xing to be so young. He looked to be only around 30. The birthday party ended quickly. Unlike us younger folks who still had energy, my in-laws wanted to head home early, so I offered to help them hail a cab. After seeing my in-laws off, I went to the front desk to settle the bill. "Hello, sir. The bill for your private room has already been taken care of," the receptionist said to me. "Hey." I never expected Zhao Kwang to be so considerate. This time he actually took the initiative to settle the bill. But when I saw the name signed at the bottom of the bill, I was somewhat surprised. The person who paid wasn't Zhao Kwang. It was Lu Xing. How could my wife's birthday party be paid for by an outsider? Something fell off about this, and my wife's recent strange behavior involuntarily surfaced in my mind. When I returned to the private room, I was met with a sight that made my blood boil and my eyes nearly burst with rage. That bastard Lu Xing had buried his face deep in my wife's bosom, wearing an expression of pure ecstasy, greedily inhaling her scent, and my wife, far from resisting Lu Xing's advances, was gently stroking his hair. The private room showed no sign of Zhao Kwang, only my wife and Lu Xing nestled together. "What are you doing?" I couldn't hold back any longer and shouted at them, seeing me furious. My wife showed no reaction. She gently adjusted Lu Xing's head and rested it on her shoulder, then turned to scold me with some annoyance. "What are you yelling for? President Lu had too much to drink and fell asleep. Don't wake him up. Is this really necessary? Making such a fuss?" Her sharp retort instantly sobered me up. Looking at Lu Xing resting on her shoulder, his face slightly flushed. It had seemed like he had drunk too much. "But you shouldn't have, brother-in-law, don't misunderstand. I asked my sister to help take care of Brother Lu. He just drank too much." I was just about to question them when Zhao Kwang stepped out from behind and interrupted me. I didn't speak anymore, looking at Lu Xing's condition, then at Zhao Kwang standing with my wife. What could possibly happen with the three of them together? Remembering that Lu Xing had paid the bill today, I felt even less justified in saying anything. I comforted myself internally. They must have had too much to drink. After all, they were guests. It's normal to be more tolerant. After the birthday party, everything seemed to have returned to normal. But things weren't as simple as I thought. That day, I was resting at home, planning to log in and play a couple rounds of League of Legends. Though I hadn't played in a long time, I still had that youthful enthusiasm. When I opened the QQ login interface, I was stunned. There was an unfamiliar QQ number displayed. It wasn't mine, nor was it my wife's. So whose could it be? Unable to resist my curiosity, I began trying to crack the password for this account. Before long, I successfully logged into this QQ account. After a quick browse, I discovered it was my wife's alternate account. When I clicked open the special contacts list, there was only one friend listed, with the note, Master. I was instantly stunned and hurriedly clicked open the chat records between my wife and this Master. Upon seeing their filthy language and some shameless, explicit photos of them bearing it all, I was so furious I felt like vomiting blood. What I found even harder to stomach were the dozen or so video recordings. The videos showed my wife and Lu Xing acting out all sorts of disgusting scenarios, completely abandoning any semblance of human dignity or decency. The wife in the video was fawning over Lu Xing, going out of her way to satisfy his every unreasonable demand, even resorting to uttering vulgarities to cater to his perverse psychological needs. I recalled how my wife behaved in front of me, so aloof and unapproachable, with an innocent and adorable appearance, exuding the youthful charm of a young girl. The stark contrast made me clench my teeth. My face flushed crimson, and my bloodshot eyes blurred the scene before me. Gradually, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and my vision began to darken. I quickly took deep breaths, trying to calm my furious emotions. Who would have thought the wife who never let me touch her at home would act like a dog for someone else, even learning to wag her tail and beg for mercy? The shock of betrayal and humiliation filled my heart with rage. Even my deepest breaths couldn't extinguish the fire burning inside me. Suddenly, I noticed the man was wearing a watch that looked familiar, as if I'd seen it somewhere before. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't recall. I retrieved my USB drive and copied all this incriminating evidence against my wife. Suddenly, it dawned on me. I remembered Lu Xing, who had attended my wife's birthday party. He was wearing an identical watch on his wrist. No wonder my wife, and he acted that way at the time. No wonder my usually aloof wife would allow Lu Xing to lie on her chest. Even though I'm a live-in son-in-law who could endure my wife and her family's open contempt, I believe no man could accept such infidelity. I wanted to expose all this, to make my wife face immediate punishment for what she deserved. But I suddenly froze. Since Zhao Kuang knew Lu Xing and they were so close, he must have been aware of my wife's affair with Lu Xing. The mere thought of that day scene makes me feel like a monkey, played for a fool without even realizing it. I will make sure they lose everything. I'll uncover every last detail behind this conspiracy. That night, my wife returned home late as usual, watching that voluptuous and seductive figure. I felt not a shred of desire, only disgust and a faint nausea. My wife didn't even glance at me, sitting on the sofa, as she walked straight into the bedroom. After putting down her bag, she grabbed a change of clothes and headed into the bathroom. I entered the bedroom, picked up my wife's phone, and brought it to the computer. There, I installed the Trojan software I'd prepared long ago into her device. The next day, I requested leave from my supervisor. The only stroke of luck was that since my wife's promotion, we no longer worked in the same department, busy serving her master every day. She wouldn't even notice my absence from work. I watched my wife's location on the phone. She was still at the office until noon when work ended. My wife's location finally began moving. During this time, she kept switching between QQ accounts to flirt online with her master, their explicit conversations reaching utterly appalling levels. I watched as my wife left the company, her movement speed suddenly accelerating, clearly having gotten into a vehicle. Before long, my wife's location stopped moving again. I hurriedly drove to the location where her car was parked, according to the map. It was a hotel. 05. As I approached the hotel, my wife's phone rang. The moment she answered, I could hear the sound from her phone on my end too. Hey sis, lend me some cash, will ya? It was Zhao Kuang's voice, and he sounded desperate. I told you not to touch that stuff. Why won't you listen? I don't have any money left. My wife's voice came through, clearly annoyed. Just one last time. Sis, I promise I'll never touch it again. Please, give me some money. I feel like there are ants crawling all over my body. Zhao Kuang's voice took on a pleading tone, bordering on tears as he begged my wife. What's wrong? Is Zhao Kuang in trouble? The sudden voice startled me. It was Lu Xing, the man who had stolen the spotlight at that gathering by constantly toasting my in-laws, earning their endless praise through his smooth words and manners. He wants money again to buy that stuff. Brother Lu, please convince my sister to give me some money. I'm begging you. This is really the last time. I can't take it anymore. I've never blabbed about your affairs. Please help me out, considering how obedient I've been. Zhao Kuang. The phone seemed to have been passed to Lu Xing. You should be grateful you didn't spill the beans. Not trying to claim credit with this. I'm sorry. Brother Lu, I won't dare do it again. Zhao Kuang's fearful voice came through as he kept apologizing to Lu Xing. I'll transfer you 10,000. It's up to you. If you want more money in the future, keep your mouth shut about me and your sister. Thank you. Brother Lu, thank you. I swear I'll never mention this again, even if you kill me. I won't tell a soul. Zhao Kuang's voice brimmed with relief, as if he were kowtowing in gratitude to Lu Xing over the phone. After the call ended, the wiretap continued recording. From their conversation, it seemed Zhao Kuang had developed a drug addiction. I was somewhat shocked. You never know until you investigate. I had thought my brother-in-law was just fooling around with his shady friends, but I never expected he'd gotten involved with that kind of stuff. The situation seemed more complicated than I had imagined. Soon, my wife and Lu Xing had already checked into a room, and I arrived downstairs at the hotel. Damn it, I forgot to bring something. My wife let out a startled cry. What is it? Hee hee. You'll find out when I bring it up later. With a mysterious tone. My wife said this before the sound of clicking footsteps followed. I stood downstairs watching the hotel entrance, and before long, my wife emerged from the hotel. She stopped by an Audi, opened a trunk, and pulled out a bag. Whatever was inside seemed quite heavy. I was puzzled. What could be so heavy? Based on the footage I'd seen, they shouldn't have needed anything like that. I sat quietly in my car, waiting. Soon after, the sound of shouting and scuffling came through my phone. I quickly sat up and fiddled with the control software on my phone, remotely activating my wife's phone camera. The sight that greeted me made my breath catch. The phone appeared to have been placed on a table. Its rear camera pointed directly at the ceiling, except the room they'd rented had no ceiling, only an enormous mirror. That mirror reflected everything happening in the room with crystal clarity. My wife naturally changed into a nun's habit and slowly knelt before Lu Xing, obediently following his commands, allowing him to manipulate her as he pleased. Although I had already seen the interactions between my wife and Lu Xing on the computer, when the scene played out before my eyes again, I felt an uncontrollable surge of rage. Yet the following scene made me once again reassess my understanding of my wife. 06 Before long, my wife seemed to find it still unsatisfying and finally brought out the black bag she had fetched downstairs earlier. She took something out of it, though the exact object remained unclear due to the viewing angle. Lu Xing's eyes lit up instantly when he saw what his wife was holding, loudly praising her. Sitting in the car, I watched the footage on my phone while chain-smoking one cigarette after another. Tears blur my vision, making it impossible to see what happened next. I don't know how much time passed before the two in the video finally finished, lying embraced on the bed with satisfied smiles on their faces. Brother Lu, when are you going to marry me? The wife nestled tightly against Lu Xing's shoulder. Didn't we already talk about this? Lu Xing slightly furrowed his brows. I have a thing for married women. That's exactly why I made you marry that poor bastard in the first place. Just be a good girl and obey. But recently he's been getting handsy, always trying to touch me. The wife pouted with grievance. Be good. Once the heat from that incident dies down in a few years, I'll take you far away from here. Lu Xing gently stroked his wife's hair. Watching their intimate display, I felt like nothing more than a clown. I used to wonder why my wife had married me in the first place. Now I understand. She was simply carrying out her master's orders, and they chose me, most likely just because they saw my honest, simple-minded, and cowardly nature. The image of my wife when she wanted to marry me resurfaced in my mind. What kind of love was that? It was clearly just pity and mockery for a plaything. I never could have imagined that I would become just a minor plot point between the two of them. You handle that person's corpse so well. They probably won't trace it back to us, right? My wife's words instantly sent chills down my spine. What? A corpse? What on earth are they talking about? It shouldn't be a big problem. I secretly had someone look into it. After all, we have no connection to that person. He was just a randomly chosen target. The police are still running in circles investigating that man's social connections. Lu Xing stubbed out his cigarette, his eyes brimming with smug satisfaction as his hands began wandering over his wife's body. I felt my mind explode. A news report from some time ago surfaced in my memory. Just in the neighboring province last year, a man had been abducted from the streets. When the police finally found him, he was discovered naked, limbs bound, hanging from a tree in a desolate wilderness. No clues were left behind, just a few strands of hair and traces of blood. That case had caused quite a stir at the time. Yet to this day, there's been no follow-up report. It seems the perpetrators were never caught. My wife and Lu Xing were entangled together, but I couldn't bear to watch any longer. I started the car and rushed back home. It wasn't until evening that my wife finally returned home. I sat on the sofa, staring blankly at the TV. Suddenly, she sat down beside me and reached her hand inside my clothes. This caught me completely off guard. A surge of heat rose from within. But the moment I remembered what she'd done with Lu Xing at the hotel, my stomach churned with nausea. I'm a bit tired. I don't want to. Slap. My wife's palm instantly struck my face, leaving me dazed and disoriented. 07, who do you think you are? My wife stood up furiously, pointing at my nose. I was going to reward you for behaving lately, but you just had to push your luck. It's because of a useless coward like you that my life is so miserable. I stared blankly at my wife, a ball of fury burning in my chest. I suddenly stood up, veins bulging on my forehead. What? You wouldn't dare hit me, would you? My wife looked at me with an arrogant expression. You can sit here watching TV so carefree. Have you ever considered whose favor you're enjoying? If you hadn't married into my family, do you think you'd have it this easy? You'd probably be working night shifts like all those low-class people by now. I may have married into your family, but I didn't sell myself to you. I took 2 deep breaths and slowly uttered these words. Oh ho ho, wasn't it with my family's money that your brother could afford to buy a house? How quickly you forget the favors my family has done for you. My wife's words left me speechless. It was true, some time ago, when my family wanted to buy a house for my brother to make it easier for him to get married. I had asked my wife for 100,000 yuan. Watching my wife's retreating figure disappear into the bedroom, I clenched my fists as the humiliations I'd endured over the past year surfaced one by one in my mind. These bastards, I'll make sure they pay the price they deserve. From that day onward, I continued my daily routine of going to work and handling household chores as usual. I don't know what my wife told her parents over the phone, but they suddenly confronted me, demanding I repay the money or they take my family to court. I could hardly believe it, even if I'm just a live-in son-in-law who borrowed money. It's not like I can run away. I'll pay it back. Why do they have to be so aggressive about it? 5 days later, my daughter turned 1 month old. For a family like my wife's, they would never skimp on a child's full-month celebration banquet. Sure enough, they invited a large number of guests that day, including my wife's friends and classmates, as well as my in-laws, relatives, and acquaintances. This was truly a heaven-sent opportunity, since they've treated me this way. Don't blame me for being ruthless. The first half of the banquet was filled with joyous guests. Laughter erupted frequently from the crowd, and even my usually stern father-in-law was all smiles, moving constantly between the tables. I took out my phone and silently made a call, seeing that the timing was about right. I hung up and stepped onto the stage, where a massive display screen stood at the front. Zheng Ji, what are you doing? My wife pointed at me and shouted, "You're blocking the screen. The children's video is about to play. Get down now." The venue was filled with numerous guests. My wife clearly suppressed her anger under normal circumstances. She would have already started yelling at me. I sneered coldly as I looked at my wife and Lu Xing beside her. Just moments ago, the two had been laughing and clinking glasses together. Looking around the room, everyone from my wife's family was present, yet they hadn't invited any of my friends. They hadn't even informed my parents. How utterly they must look down on our entire family. I shook my head with a bitter laugh and picked up the microphone. "Everyone, thank you so much for coming to celebrate the 1-month banquet for my wife and boss Lu Xing's daughter." The audience immediately fell silent, everyone staring at me on stage with bewildered expressions. "Zheng Ji, have you lost your mind?" Both my wife and father-in-law pointed at me and shouted, demanding I get off the stage. Ignoring them, I simply turned to the staff backstage and signaled for them to insert the USB drive I prepared earlier into the computer. Soon, images appeared on the display screen, standing on the stage. 08 instantly. Everyone was dumbfounded, staring at my wife and Lu Xing in shock. My wife's entire family froze in astonishment, momentarily forgetting to stop me, because what was playing on the screen wasn't our daughter's 100-day celebration video, but the disgusting bedroom footage I had secretly recorded of my wife and Lu Xing, along with their explicit and debauched chat records. In an instant, an uproar erupted as everyone began whispering among themselves, with many eager onlookers even pulling out their phones to take pictures. This was truly a bombshell revelation. The usually aloof and stern supervisor, who held such a high position in the company, turned out to be leading such a debauched private life. Zhao Kuang was the first to charge forward, trying to snatch the microphone and display controller from my hands. To be honest, having grown up in the countryside, even if I hadn't exercised much in recent years, I was still no match for a scrawny troublemaker like him, especially one who had fallen into drug abuse. With just a light flick, I sent him tumbling to the ground. My wife also rushed onto the stage, seeing the situation turn against him. With many people around pointing fingers, Lu Xing turned to leave. "Lu Xing." I pointed at the crouching figure below the stage and shouted, "You bastard, still trying to run. Today I'll see just how capable you are. Does having money make you special? Does money give you the right to treat human lives like weeds?" My words made Lu Xing freeze momentarily. A vicious expression flashed across his face before he turned and bolted for the door. But he was wrong. How could I possibly let the mastermind behind all this escape? Police. Several officers pushed through the door. "Don't move." Lu Xing, who had been running wildly just moments before, froze instantly. Even my wife, who had been kicking and punching me on the stage, stopped. Her eyes filled with despair as she stared blankly at the officers at the door, then turned to look at me. "Zheng Ji, I've wronged you. I deserve to die. Please, I beg you. Let's go." She began to beg for mercy, kneeling and weeping bitterly, clutching desperately at my pant leg. Looking at her pale face and terrified, helpless expression, I suddenly felt the pent-up rage in my heart completely dissipate. My brother-in-law, Zhao Kuang, was so frightened at the sight of the police that his legs turned to jelly. His face looked as pale as a corpse, and though he clawed frantically at the ground, his body remained limp as a rag, unable to move an inch. Before long, the commotion in the hall came to an end, and my wife's entire family was taken away to the police station. The in-laws began pulling strings everywhere, trying to get their children out of the police station, but they were too anxious and made a wrong move. They leveraged their connections to approach local officials. intending to settle the matter with money. But fate played a cruel joke. They ended up getting themselves arrested too, while I was assisting the police with the case at the station. Officers from the neighboring province arrived. They had received information that the murderer of that man was right here. Half a month later, the truth came to light, and the trial for my wife's family and Lu Xing finally arrived. On the day of the court hearing, I dressed up carefully. I wanted to witness how they would swallow the bitter fruit of their actions, and, more importantly, how they would become prisoners. When I arrived at the courtroom and took my seat in the witness stand, it wasn't long before my wife's family and Lu Xing were all brought out in custody. Truly a family, even going to prison together in such perfect order. As they passed by me, I muttered sarcastically under my breath. My wife and father-in-law tried to lunge at me, but the bailiffs beside them wouldn't give them the chance, roughly forcing their bodies back into place. I burst into laughter. This feeling was absolutely exhilarating. All the humiliation I'd endured for so long had finally found its moment of retribution. 09, under the weight of various evidence and my testimony, my wife's family and Lu Xing finally received the punishment they deserved. Through their confessions, I learned the full story behind everything, and their actions provoked angry outbursts from spectators in the courtroom. It turned out my in-laws weren't just charged with bribing government officials. During their younger years, they had abused their positions to embezzle substantial sums, all of which the police thoroughly uncovered. Many victims of their fraud and extortion came forward to testify, resulting in both being sentenced to 15 years in prison and fined 1 million yuan, though not a death sentence. At their advanced age of 70, 15 years might as well be a life sentence. My wife and Lu Xing had known each other 5 years earlier. At that time, Lu Xing was just a company executive who, relying on his wealth, took my wife as his mistress. It was from then on, under Lu Xing's influence, that my wife completely revealed her promiscuous nature. She began to comply with Lu Xing's various demands, even to the extent that the man who was later killed had merely happened to pass by them. The two then applied their premeditated script, abducting the man to the woods and forcing him to play the role of Zhao Lin's husband, staging a scene where they pleasured themselves in front of him. Fearing exposure afterward, despite the man's desperate pleas and promises not to reveal what had happened, they still chose to kill him. They fled back to the city where I lived. The thrill of that incident excited Lu Xing so much that he ordered Zhao Lin to marry me. By chance, this matter was discovered by Zhao Quang, the brother-in-law. Lu Xing then sought out a friend to purchase drugs, taking the opportunity to indulge and subsequently getting Zhao Quang addicted. Later, a series of events unfolded. They believed their actions were flawless, leaving no trace for anyone to notice. However, the long arm of the law eventually caught up with them, and they could not escape its judgment. Both the wife and Lu Xing were sentenced to death. Moreover, based on the leads provided by Lu Xing, the police dismantled an entire drug trafficking network. As for my brother-in-law, Zhao Quang, he could only be considered lucky. But having fallen into drug addiction, even if he's sent to rehab, will he truly be able to quit drugs in this lifetime? Watching my wife's entire family collapse in the defendant's dock after hearing the verdict, I felt the shackles in my heart shatter completely. The self-respect they had trampled underfoot for so long finally returned to me. 2 weeks later, not only was my divorce from my wife finalized, but all the properties under her name were transferred to me, a full 7 apartments. A testament to how much my in-laws had doted on their daughter. I sold off all the properties and prepared to return to my hometown with the money. I returned to my parents' side. 2 years. A full 2 years had passed since I last saw them. Back when I got married, my wife's family wouldn't even allow me to invite my parents to the wedding. Seeing my parents with their hair now streaked with gray, I couldn't hold back my tears. My younger brother at home has also found a decent job. I just hope when facing people and matters in society, he won't be as foolishly naive as I was. After going through this ordeal, I gradually came to understand that no matter where you are, a person must live with dignity. Otherwise, you'll face the cruelty of human nature.